Hello, everyone. Welcome to AP Sources Simplified. Today, we are looking at the turning point in American history of the election of Andrew Jackson. He is one of the most controversial figures in American history. So let's take a look at what his election to the highest office meant for the direction of America. The most important and biggest effects were in the political realm. A few years prior to the arrival of Jackson, America was in what the history books now term the era of good feelings. It was a short period post-war of 1812 in which there was a surge of national unity. During this time, there was only one major political party, the Democratic Republicans. However, several factions had developed in it, including the pro-infrastructure, tariffs, and national bank faction, which was headed by Henry Clay. There was also the Southern anti-tariff, states' rights, pro-slavery faction headed by John C. Calhoun, and soon a giant wedge into the party will be forged with the Jackson faction. The 1828 election had been closely divided. Andrew Jackson won the most popular votes, but no one secured a majority of electoral votes, so it went to the House of Representatives, where Henry Clay held a lot of sway. A bargain was struck, and John Quincy Adams, son of founding father and second president John Adams, was declared president. Jackson and his supporters were outraged, calling it a corrupt bargain. While John Quincy Adams was a skilled politician within government, outside of it, he was not very popular with the people. And now the people had more say as states began striking down property requirements for voting, so now more lower-class white males could vote. Adams was seen as a puppet of elite bankers and merchants, and in the election of 1828, Andrew Jackson soundly defeated him. Jackson's victory was a shock to the political establishment. Jackson was seen amongst the elite as a ruffian and unstable. However, he held great appeal to the lower-class masses. After his election, bitter divisions split open the Democratic Republicans. Jackson played favorites and only nominated supporters for key government positions, even if they were not qualified. This would be called the spoils system. Another key development with Jackson's victory was it threw Henry Clay's American system idea into jeopardy, as Jackson attacked a key component of it, the national bank, as a tool of the corrupt elite. Jackson's opponents also viewed his presidency as a constitutional crisis, as they felt he abused his veto power and did not comply with the checks and balances in the Constitution. Exasperating this was Jackson's refusal to abide by a Supreme Court decision regarding the Cherokee. This would eventually lead to the Trail of Tears. Also, Jackson had another political brawl with John C. Calhoun, the most powerful politician from the South in the time period. Calhoun and Southern states hated the tariffs that had passed in Congress. One in 1828 was called the Tariff of Abominations. While Jackson was not a fan of tariffs himself, he would not stand for the South Carolina's attempt to not abide by the tariff when they nullified it in their state. Jackson threatened action, including military intervention. Eventually, a compromise tariff was passed, and South Carolina stood down. This time. Finally, by the end of Jackson's presidency, the divisions were so deep that the Democratic-Republican Party split and arose a new national party, the Whigs. Now America was back to a two-party system. The Whigs' main position was to oppose Jackson. I will go over more in depth the differences between Whigs and Jacksonian Democrats in another video. Moving on to economic matters. Before the election of Jackson and throughout the presidency of Jackson, the Northeast was experiencing the market revolution. New technologies were aiding the development of industries and beginning of mass production of goods. The West, which for us today would be the Midwest, the region of the Ohio River Valley and out to the Mississippi, was being settled. The Deep South was well into its transition to the cash crop, cotton, and Henry Clay was advocating for his American system. He wanted to tie the regions of America together into an interdependent economic machine. To do this, he was trying to pass increases on tariffs to protect American industry from foreign competition and subsidize big infrastructure projects like national roads, canals, and railroads that would physically connect the regions. Finally, the continuation and expansion of powers of a national bank that could help make loans for infrastructure projects, manage the national debt, and money supply. The election of Jackson put these economic goals into jeopardy, especially the national bank. During his presidency, federally funded infrastructure projects continued. However, Jackson did veto a national road. Jackson's big fight was with the national bank. He withdrew funds from it and promised to veto its renewal. Those federal funds were sent out to state pet banks, many ran by Jackson's supporters. Those state banks now had power to print money and make loans to land speculators. Towards the end, and lasting long after Jackson's presidency, an economic crisis hit the United States, in part because of Jackson's monetary policy. Paper money suffered hyperinflation, and a specie circular law was passed that only allowed for large purchases, most commonly land, to be made in gold or silver. The economic recession, and some say it was a depression, lasted until the mid-1840s. The social sphere is least affected by the election of Jackson. Before the election, white males without property gained the right to vote, and with it, some social standing. When Jackson won the election of 1828, many small-scale farmers and others in the lower classes were elated as they saw Jackson as one of their own. This is why the Jacksonian era is also called the era of the common man. More states would get rid of property requirements for voting, and campaigns would take on a more grassroots feel as candidates now needed to appeal to the common man. Slogans and candidate nicknames became the norm, and those are now centerpieces of a political campaign. Other than that, though, not a whole lot else changed because of Jackson's election. The Second Great Awakening is occurring, and various movements, including abolitionists and suffragettes, are springing up. But I wouldn't relate that back to the election of Andrew Jackson. Okay, that does it for the election of Jackson as a turning point in U.S. history. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more AP review and primary source explanations.